As history reflects on the world's handling of COVID-19, there is no greater tragedy than realizing avoidable mistakes. Former White House trade advisor and author of Death by China, Peter Navarro, tells One American News the ineptitude of NIH Director Anthony Fauci, combined with Fauci's grudge against Donald Trump, are two things that must be exposed.
The blood, literally, of hundreds of thousands of Americans are on the hands of people like Dr. Anthony Fauci and Stephen Hahn at the FDA. If you take, for example, hydroxychloroquine, I knew from the outset, reading the available scientific literature at the time, that hydroxychloroquine was certainly safe. It was been used for 6 decades, but it was also effective, not just as a cure for the virus.
Navarro recalls that when early data showed anti-malarial drug hydroxychloroquine was effective at reducing COVID fatalities, the Trump administration secured 60 million doses stashed in FEMA warehouses.
That's enough hydroxy for 5 million Americans, right? And so we could have literally, just with that shipment alone, saved thousands of lives. And Fauci, that guy was at the bottom of everything wrong with the pandemic, because he was the principal person who blocked hydroxychloroquine, who helped create hydroxy hysteria in the press, and who pressured Stephen Hahn at the FDA to issue adverse rulings.
Of Dr. Fauci, why was he so opposed to?
I'll give you two possibilities. Fauci's gig was that there wasn't enough scientific evidence to support the use of hydroxychloroquine. It was counterfactual, so he's a bad scientist. I go back to the time back in the 80s when Fauci, as a young man, was the AIDS czar. And he played that game once before. There was a suite of drugs similar to hydroxychloroquine that everybody knew was effective. The gay community was adamant about getting Fauci to approve that suite of drugs, and he was adamant about not doing it.
Navarro says Fauci's opposition to life-saving AIDS drugs was, like his opposition to hydroxychloroquine, not grounded in science or data.
There's a wonderful book named by Sean Strub called Body Count, which actually calculates that just on that basis alone, Fauci killed 17,000 gay men who basically choked on their own phlegm because of what Fauci did. Now, the other hypothesis, of course, which is consistent with his behavior throughout the crisis, was he was simply trying to defeat Donald Trump. I mean, he's Joe Biden's best buddy. He was part of the Obama administration. Hydroxychloroquine may have been just one of the sacrificial lambs. Anthony Fauci is the man who used American taxpayer dollars to fund the Wuhan Institute of Virology gain-of-function experiments, which in all likelihood created the deadly weaponized virus that is now killing people around the world. Fauci, in 2017, went behind the backs of the Trump White House and reauthorized dangerous gain-of-function experiments to weaponize viruses. Obama, in 2014, had shut that down. We know that's a fact. And we know that the Bat Lady, who's at the very epicenter and core of this whole crisis, was given money directly from Fauci. She thanked him for that in one of her journal articles.
Why did President Trump keep him around?
First time I met Fauci was in the Situation Room on January 28th, 2020. Never met the man before. Within about 2 minutes, I was in a shouting match with him. The president had sent me there to basically get support from the task force for the travel ban on China. Fauci was dead set against it. I would beat him that day. But if people had listened to Tony Fauci that day instead, we would have lost hundreds of thousands of American lives. He was just adamantly opposed to the travel ban. I told the boss, you got to fire this guy. I told him that early because I could see right then that the guy was nothing but trouble. That didn't happen. I don't win all my battles at the White House.
When confronted by these questions, the Biden White House is dismissive, maintaining that Dr. Fauci is a trusted and respected advisor and remains the chief medical expert on the pandemic. Chanel Rion, One American News, the White House.